We've all felt it, haven't we? That hesitation right before we take a risk. A fear that isn't really about the task itself, but about the judgment that might come after. Today, we're going to deconstruct this deep and often really paralyzing fear of rejection. So let's just start with this central, kind of paradoxical question. Why is it that a negative comment from a total stranger can have more power, more weight than the genuine love and approval from the people who are closest to us? It's a puzzle that, when you solve it, reveals something really profound about how we're wired. And the answer, well, it's not what you might think. It's not a personal flaw. It's not a sign of weakness. This fear is actually an ancient biological weapon, a survival tool that's been hardwired into our brains over thousands and thousands of years. What you feel is an echo from a time when being cast out meant death. To really understand this mechanism, we have to go back, way back to its origins. So let's start with part one, the survival mechanism, and the evolution of pain itself. I want you to travel back with me, about 200,000 years. For our ancestors, belonging to the clan wasn't just for comfort. It was everything. It was survival. To be banished from the group, to be socially exiled, that was a death sentence, plain and simple. There were no second chances. So how did the brain make sure we would do everything in our power to stay in the group? Well, it evolved this ingenious, if maybe a little brutal, alarm system. And the key component here is a region called the anterior cingulate cortex. It's remarkable because of its dual function. You see, this is where you can see the brain's incredible economy of pain. To make absolutely sure that social threats were taken with the ultimate seriousness, evolution basically co-opted the neural pathways for physical injury. So a burn on your hand and the sting of being excluded, they literally trigger the same neural alarm. Your nervous system processes social rejection as if it were a physical wound. And that's the source of why it hurts so much. Now, this is the crucial point. That ancient survival hardware is still running our modern software. Your brain, in so many ways, is still operating in a Paleolithic context. It doesn't distinguish between the existential threat of being cast out of the cave and a negative comment on an Instagram post. The alarm feels exactly the same, even if the stakes have changed completely. But you know, this ancient alarm isn't the whole story. The sensitivity of that alarm, well, that gets calibrated very early in our lives. And that brings us to part two, the unbreakable bond, and the imprint left on us by our childhood. This is where something called attachment theory becomes absolutely essential. It basically says that our earliest relationships, especially with our primary caregivers, create a kind of blueprint, an internal working model for how we expect all of our future relationships to work. And this blueprint, it's what determines the sensitivity of our rejection alarm. Now, if that early connection wasn't consistently secure, if it felt shaky or unpredictable, a chain reaction is set in motion. An insecure bond conditions the brain for a state of what's called hypervigilance. You're just constantly scanning for threats of abandonment. And over time, this state can evolve into what we can call an anticipation block in adulthood. And this block, it isn't really about the task itself. You know, a person doesn't avoid asking for a raise just because they fear failing. They avoid it because deep down in the subconscious logic, failure leads to rejection. And rejection is seen as the ultimate confirmation of a deeply held belief that they are fundamentally unworthy of acceptance. So when you feel that intense, overwhelming, maybe even irrational fear of rejection from a boss or a partner, you're not being dramatic. You are being biologically consistent with your own personal history. Your adult brain is triggering the exact same primal alarm that a small child feels when they desperately need a parent's presence just to survive. Understanding this history, both the evolutionary one we all share and our own personal one, is the absolute key to changing our relationship with this fear. Which brings us to our final section, the unlocking, where we learn to reclassify the pain. Here it is, the core insight. It's the necessity of distinguishing between the ancient alarm and our current reality. See, the alarm signals an existential threat to survival because, well, that's its evolutionary job. But in most of our modern contexts, the threat is really just a difference of opinion. The alarm is real, it's valid, but its interpretation is profoundly outdated. So the goal then isn't to silence the alarm. Frankly, that's an impossible task. The real work is to acknowledge its signal, to feel it, and then, consciously, to reinterpret its message within the context of your life today. And doing this allows for a completely new way of thinking, a new framework. Rejection stops being proof of your fundamental unworthiness, which is that old childhood narrative. Instead, it can be reclassified as something else entirely, evidence of your autonomy. It's proof that you took an independent action, that you expressed a personal boundary, that you engaged with a risk. And this is the crucial realization. An action was taken, rejection happened, and survival followed. The alarm went off, the feeling was intense, but the catastrophe that you predicted did not happen. The clan did not come and exact its fatal punishment. Every single time you experience the sequence, you are providing new data to your brain, recalibrating that ancient mechanism. So we'll conclude with a question for you to reflect on. Now that we've looked at the evolutionary and psychological architecture of this fear, consider this. If the fear of rejection is a foundation, what other structures has it built in your life? What patterns of avoidance or self-doubt or unfulfilled ambition might just be resting upon it?